One of the things I really enjoy about this little harbour that I'm in here in Denmark is they've got a castle up there, and it's got a little belfry on top, and it sounds out every morning at 8 o'clock, and it's going to start any minute now, and I'm waiting for it to start to put up my colours. There she goes. So up go the colours. Good old red ensign. Pop it into the socket. There it goes. And then I've just got my own little method here for tying it on with the back end of the halyard, which ensures that if it gets boisterous when I'm out at sea, I can't lose my colours, because we wouldn't want that, would we? There we are. Now then, why do I take my colours down every night at sunset or 9 o'clock, whichever is earliest? And why do I put them up at 0800, no matter what? Well, it's an ancient tradition in Britain to do this, and most other countries do it as well. The Americans certainly do it. But it goes back beyond just being a pure tradition. There's actually reason behind it, and the reason is this. Back in the 17th century, Samuel Pepys, that great diarist and humorist, who was actually in charge of the Navy Board at that time, was getting huge bills in from his captains for bunting, of all things, what you make flags out of. And he thought, this is insane, this is just too much money they're spending on this, what's going on? And it struck him that they had the bunting flying all night. And so he issued an edict that they should all take their colours in at sunset and put them up again at 8 o'clock in the morning, the start of the forenoon watch. And the bills were cut in half. Magic. He loved it. And you know, that's a really good reason why we should do it, isn't it? I mean, my ensign is 2 or 3 years old. It's getting a bit faded, and I'll probably replace it next year. But if it'd been up all night, it'd be up for replacement every year, because there's nothing worse than a faded ensign, is there? Or a tatty one. We just can't have that. So there we are. That's the rationale for doing it. Actually, I've got another private reason. That when I was a lot younger than I am now and was involved with professional yachting, I had an old shipmate called Robert. He was a great man, Robert. He'd done all sorts of things. He'd been to a public school, he spoke beautifully, and he'd been a roustabout. He'd been a hobbler in Shoreham on the south coast of England, taking the lines off the ships. He'd done it all. And he was a yacht hand when I knew him, and in fact he sailed with me for many years. And Robert was absolutely punctilious about colours. No matter what had happened, no matter what an appalling night on the town he'd had the night before, what a state he was in the morning, he was up there at the start of the watch, and up went the colours. Absolutely magical. Well, Robert's gone from us now, I'm sorry to say. I miss him dearly, but I never forget him every time I put the colours up in the morning. So it's also out of respect to my old mate Robert. But, you know, for most of us, it's a pragmatic thing, and it's giving respect to history and to who we are. Okay, well that's the ensign, but there's another thing. What do we do about our courtesy ensigns and our house flags, the other stuff that we fly from our spreaders? Well, let's go and have a look, should we? So, we all know that when we're in a foreign country, we fly their ensign from our cross trees, from our spreaders, as a mark of, well, pure decency really to the country that we're in. Some countries get really fussy if you don't do it, so just take it as read. You've got to do this. So which side do you fly it? Well, the convention these days is that you fly it from the starboard side, and whatever else you're flying, it must be the top flag on that hoist of flags. Well, I've got halyards on both sides of my boat for flying small flags, and I keep my courtesy ensign with a hoist of its own, and here it is. It's been down overnight. There's a point. Do you drop it overnight or don't you? We know we bring our own colours in, but what about courtesy ensigns? Well, I don't think there's a real rule about that. I'm not aware of it as there is, so I just do it, really use my common sense. If there's absolutely no wind and I'm feeling a bit tired and I'm halfway through my dinner, I leave it up because it's not going to do any harm. If it's windy, or if it's flying at all really, I bring it down when I bring my ensign down, just to save it. And this particular courtesy flag, which I'm going to put up now, this is the Danish one. This shows you how it pays to look after your flags. Back in 1988, I sailed to Soviet Russia. I came up the Baltic Sea and I needed courtesy flags for the Baltic countries. So I went to an outfit in Liverpool, a really nice old-fashioned company, and said, I want you to make me courtesy flags for every country in the Baltic, just so that if I go there, I'm going to be able to do the decent thing. And they did, and I got these lovely flags. Look at that. Beautiful. Look at the size of it. That's a proper courtesy flag, isn't it? That shows respect. They used rather nasty blue polypropylene, but you know, that was sort of, I suppose, Liverpool back in the 80s, but not anymore. It'd be nice now, wouldn't it? But whether the flag would be this good, I don't know. And this is a proper stitched flag. None of your printed rubbish from the local swindlery. This is a proper flag, and that's how it should be. And incidentally, you should always fly a stitched ensign as well, not a printed thing. It's just not right. Flags are lovely things, and it's nice to get them right. So up she goes, and I've got a little cleat down here, so I can cleat it off, and that's done for the day. Flying nicely. The last point is, what about your house flags? These are flags for your club or for anything else really that you can think of that you want to fly. I fly mine on the port side, and I fly two house flags. The top one is the Royal Cruising Club house flag. The club likes us to fly a burgee. That's a triangular flag which is flown from the masthead. I can't do that because I've got too much clutter at my modern masthead, so I always did in my old-fashioned boats, but I can't anymore. So I fly a house flag under the port spreaders. Below that is the house flag of the Old Gaffers Association, of which I was president for many years with great pride and humour and delight. So those are my two house flags, and they fly on the opposite side to the courtesy flag. Just one thing about flying burgees. If you've got a triangular burgee and you have to fly it, or want to fly it, as a house flag, not as a burgee, which would be at the masthead where it should be, then really you should try and find yourself a square one or a swallowtail one, a proper house flag. It's not a nice thing to fly a burgee below the spreaders. It just isn't right. It jars against me. I did it one year because I had no choice. I wanted to show I was a member of the cruising club, and I didn't have a house flag, so I flew my burgee and I hated it all the year, and finally stumped up and got a proper one. So there you go. There's no law against it. It just doesn't look right. Good. Okay. Well, there we are. That's flags on the modern yacht. Nothing to it really, is there? We just have to remember who we are and where we've come from.